They cannot be in ivory towers looking down on an India, because that's not the kind of India.
But the argument has been made that we're in just the first decade of liberalization and globalization, and in this first decade, when people who have legitimately made money and earned money, they have the right to celebrate their wealth. That is what the argument of some economists is. But let me get in Mani Shankar Iyer. Mani Shankar Iyer, I'm going to quote to you an economist who you know very well. You know him very, very well. In fact, you know him better than most people. And he has written that the landless laborer in Bihar or Orissa is not poor because Azim Premji and Mukesh Ambani is rich. He is poor because callous governments have failed to provide him with education, infrastructure, physical security and income opportunities. Correcting this requires root and branch reforms in police, schools and judiciary, but politicians cannot do this reform because they would ruffle the vote banks. Thus, politicians pretend that the problem lies with rich industrialists because this to them is the soft option. Respond to that.
I know you're quoting my brother. And I don't wish to enter into an argument with my brother, because I don't think the point that he's making is the point that I wish to make. I'm unconcerned with whether the rich flaunt their wealth or not. What I am deeply concerned about is that accelerated growth is leading to accelerated disparities. And the 8% growth rate is a notional figure, because those who are successful are growing perhaps at 8,000% per annum. Whereas the same Montek Singh Ahluwalia, whom you quoted a few minutes ago, said in a meeting which I attended that the pace at which we are moving people up from below to above the poverty line is 0.8% per annum. Now we have the UNHCR, which teaches us that in 1994, India was at position 134 on the UN Human Development Index. 17 years later, we are still at position 134, notwithstanding an increase in outlays which is of an order of 17 times over the last 17 years. The issue is far more serious than whether Mr. Ambani wants to spend 5 or 6,000 crore on his house. What we need to know is whether in a very full-fledged democracy we can postpone the question of social justice by 2 centuries, as they did in the United States and the United Kingdom.
But then
or whether we need social justice now as much as we need growth now.
But respond to Montek Singh Ahluwalia's point then, which you were referring to earlier, saying that it's the media which is exaggerating wealth disparities by focusing on absolute poverty at the one end and absolute wealth on the other. In fact, the media is not taking into consideration the vast numbers of middle class people whose living standards are increasing exponentially. That's the point that he's made in his essay in EPW.
Well, my personal position on that is that the media is just making too much of this middle class, and they are creating a salience between the successful middle class and all of India. The problem with the media is that it takes no interest whatsoever in our submerged people. It's so obsessed with emerged India that it doesn't understand the submerged people.
Right.
We have a situation where India is prospering and Indians are not.